But Steve, one of the things that I think you even pointed this out recently, but I've appreciated the shift in the verbiage and the language that's happened over the past probably 12, 18 months, where we've gone from kind of talking about this idea of data-driven decision making to data-informed decision making. And I really like that. For me personally, one of the things that resonates a lot is if the data alone is dictating decisions, then we're not thinking about context, we're not thinking about strategy, we're not thinking about solutions technically. We're really kind of looking at, just what the data says, and it's a in my mind, it's like a cop out. It's like, well, we can't do that. The data said we can't, right? Well, maybe the data said something, but if you have a shift or a pivot or something like that. So anyway, I'm curious though, like, as you think about this conversation with executives, and kind of how you're engaging, do you get the sense that executives are wanting the data to drive the decision, or are you getting the sense that the executives want to be informed by the data?
Certainly the latter, but I don't think there's anything evil necessarily in the term, data driven. To me,
Okay.
I think it's more the implication that we are looking at the data seriously to make decisions versus
Yes.
it's the only thing that's driving stuff. And I'm sure that, and this is the point that Hannah Fry made at the Tableau conference about you don't want to be data driven, you want to be data informed. I'm sure. And then the whole discussion about data literacy versus data fluency. Jordan Morrow must be, no, we don't want to be doing that. I wrote a book called Be Data Literate, not Data Fluent. Oh, I wrote a book called, Be Data Driven, not Data Informed. So no, we want to go this way. We are, by the way, I'm trying to promote people from time to time. I'm right-clicking on the names and trying to make them panelists. I think we've succeeded in making one person who was not a panelist. I'm just right-clicking and saying, become a panelist, and that way you can unmute yourself and ask questions and stuff. I'm not sure if it's working or not, but trying to make allowing more people to have the discussion, as much as I am fine speaking with Jen and Nicole and Anna and now Jade. So I don't think they're thinking, no, the data is doing this. It's more, we're going to pay more attention. You can certainly decline, by the way, if we make you, don't know if you agree or not, but I don't think it's like, oh my God, you're data driven. You're not taking all these other things into account. You're letting, and maybe the data is flawed, et cetera. That's my take on it, Nelson. I don't know if you agree or other people agree.
One of the things that I like about it, regardless of the middle word, I like the idea that data has a part in the decision, right? So if it's a data-driven or if it's data-informed decision, I think it's a reminder that the reason we look at data in the first place is so that we can make better decisions. Like that's, I think sometimes I have to remind folks, that, we're doing this on purpose. Like if you're not learning anything from this, if you're not also informing and thinking about the ideal behaviors of your people, of the particular audience, like, do you want them checking this every day, every week? What levers and systems and processes do you want people pulling once they learn something? And do they understand the upstream and downstream pieces of that? But it's the one thing we don't want is, oh, that's nice, right? And I'm going to go back to doing the thing that I was doing before, right? We want the data to be part of the decision-making process. So I think that is, again, regardless of which middle word we use, I think that's the biggest piece for me that I've continued to appreciate and continue to push on.
So now, wow, look at all these, the squares, they're multiplying. It's in a kinder, gentler era, we could say, oh, it's going viral, but probably not now. I just did. So we can, people can use their reaction buttons to put up their hand, and then we can start calling on people who either want to chime in and go, oh, I have a better example, or I think that's nonsense. Hey, Heather, it is great to see you. Although I'm just seeing a box with your name in it. But it's nice to see familiar wording, if not a familiar face, and familiar sound to my ears.
I hate to put her on the spot, but Jade had a really good question about bar charts. I don't know if we can practice with Jade and see if this will let her unmute and ask.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hey, Jade.
Okay, cool. I don't have access to video, but that's fine. I'm not complaining. So my question was, is there ever use to not include 0 on an axis? Like,
Oh gosh, yes.
okay, because
And
the other day I was like building a viz and it was just so hard to see what the change was. And I went to, exclude 0 and I felt bad. I was like, I can't be doing this. This is a data viz
No. Okay, hold on a sec. So, shameless self-promotion, but I have a whole section in the big picture suggesting not only is it okay, sometimes it's essential you do it. Not doing it is in fact being misleading. A 0 baseline may have nothing to do with what you're measuring, which may be very slight fluctuations in a kid's temperature, and showing 0 would be a horrible thing, because it just looks like, oh, the kids, there's no fever. It's barely gone up at all. Well, it's gone up to 106. Yeah, it's just a little slight increase because you have the thing starting at 0. No one has a temperature of 0. So that said, it is probably never cool to do it with a bar chart, because people are looking at comparing how big is this bar versus this bar. But with dots, maybe with lines, etc. But that I wouldn't even say that's a rule, but that's a really strong guideline. You probably don't want to do it with bars, but I give a whole bunch of examples where here's where I think it's okay, here's where I think you probably don't want to do it. And as long as you can justify your reason for it, and if someone suggests, and says, wait a minute, you're being misleading, and said, no, I'm trying to show the change here, and it's significant. I'm not trying to show that this thing is 18 times as big as this. I'm trying to show that it went from this to this, and that is very significant based on what we think is important in the way we measure things here. It is a friggin' great question, and it doesn't have always do this, always do that type of answer. Anyone disagree with that on this?
I love your answer. And Steve, the reason why at the end of the day is if you do that thing, you're missing the context, right? And context is such the key word in all of this, right? If we begin to cut out some part of the visualization, we're losing the contextual piece. And so if it's a trend, to your point, and kind of that line chart, well, the context is the trend. But the other point is very well made. If it's a bar, then the size of the bar is the point, right? And one bar by itself, or even 2 bars by themselves, typically are not great. You really need kind of 3 or more data points when it comes to the bar and so forth. So anyway,
Jade, I will say I agonized over explaining this in the big picture, with examples, and here's when I think it's okay, when it's not, and the justification. So there you go.
Cool, thank you. That's super helpful, because I was having the same problem. I was like, do I do this? Do I not? So thank you.
Yeah, you don't want you look, and that's a good way to feel. That means there's some compass in you, some moral compass on this thing that is, hey, I want to make sure I'm not doing something that's misleading, and it sounds like it wasn't. Hey, there's Charles. Hey, man.
We have a phrase around here that says, pay attention to the tension. So if you feel that tension in you, you should pay attention to it. Charles, go ahead, ma'am.
Steve, good to see you again. And thanks to the Atlanta group. Steve, I run the San Diego Tableau user group. And I was originally a co-host when you first came on and did Big Book of Dashboards. Helped you set up that meeting. I actually give away a free copy of Big Book of Dashboards. It's every San Diego Tableau user group. I figured that everybody that's kind of in professional development needs to read that book in order to create better visualization. So great job on that. Reason I came in is kind of the evolution of my analytics career. I've been doing this now for about 12 plus years. And recently I've been doing more blogging and researching and really learning how to get adoption by the C-suite, right, of executives. And that's why I joined this meeting today, was to kind of get your perspective. I really respect your opinion, and I watch a lot of chart chat, and I've grown from you over the years, and so I really appreciate your contributions. And I think that's a big topic right now is how do you get the C-suite involved and engaged? I've worked at a few companies now where I feel like the marketing department asks for stuff, but then the marketing executive doesn't use that data, right? And it's complex, or it takes a long time. And so I've really been researching that sort of stuff and trying to understand, how do you get adoption and utilization by the C-suite? And what I really liked about today's chart is kind of use cases and providing examples, not just like industry specific or tool specific, but company specific. And what I had said in the chat was, I'm kind of a consultant on the side now. I'm working with a lending company. I went and found 4 or 5 examples of how did a lending company use dashboarding, use analytics to drive results. And a big thing I got from you today was that crowdsourcing example. Bring people in, not the executives, but other people that have skin in the game to say, hey, we want data visualization too. How can we work together, crowdsource, and put together a presentation that can help get the C-suite on board and engaged and very interested? So I love that idea of crowdsourcing. And like yourself, I find in my evolution in analytics, in the analytics space, use cases are very helpful in driving the interest. So love what you're saying today. Can't wait to get your new book, and just thank you for everything that you do.
Oh man, thank you for the kind word, but also be part of this group. You just gave you said you found some particular examples and use cases that you knew were going to resonate with this particular audience, and maybe that can become generic enough. It was a big epiphany when I realized, wait a minute, I'm not going to come in and be the savior. Oh, hire me to come in and give the greatest presentation ever, and the executives will be saying, yes, sign me up for this. It's, oh my gosh, there's so many people who have better examples, better ideas, etc. Collectively, we will create this better presentation over time, and all of us are going to benefit from this. Oh, well, we got to mute somebody here. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm researching it, Steve, and I'm trying to write blogs when I have free time between being a dad and running a Tableau user group and 50-hour work weeks.
Boy, do I hear you.
Right, but I'm enjoying researching the topic and blogging on it. So when I have examples or information I can share with the larger group, love to bring it to the table and help kind of brainstorm on the best approach to reach those goals.
But all of us here, do you see how we all benefit from this thing becoming more in demand, more desirable, more people excited about it? In my case, look, self-serving. I sell more books, do more workshops, do more presentations. More people go to Action Analytics and these various organizations. They hire Nelson, they hire Anna, they hire Nicole, they hire Jen, hire any of the practitioners. In your own organization, they want to say, oh my gosh, we now kind of get what you can bring to the table. You are, we want to make sure you're really happy here because you're good at this thing. So it's in everybody's best interest to get people excited about the possibilities with this. And that requires teaching, training, change management, and coming up with better examples that resonate.
Charles, one thing I'd add to this conversation, which I think is a great one, is there's a guy named Donald Miller who wrote a book and has a whole mindset around this idea of story brand. And the idea of story brand is very much that rather than telling you what to do, you're inviting someone into a story. And so as you think about having, trying to persuade or engage the executives into this more analytical conversation, that data storytelling is some version of kind of an invitation into a larger story. And I would, that's been something that we really wrap our arms around is how can we not just tell you what to do, because ultimately, nobody really wants to be told what to do. But if we invite you into a story that you're a part of, or that, you have responsibility into or accountability into, and we can help you see how it's made better. That's a much different experience than it is to be like, here's your dashboard. So there's just another way to tweak it and to think about it.
Completely agree with that, Nelson. And that's kind of how I've evolved. Like when I first started off, it was Excel, SQL, throw data out there, data dumps. People weren't looking at it, and I learned from experience to say, well, I got to do something differently. And right, the influencing, inviting them, bringing them in, that concept really resonates with me and resonates with my my customers.
Love it. Thanks for coming all the way from San Diego. That flight must have been terrible, but glad you're here.
Well, the weather's nice, so thanks. Steve, I just can't gush about you enough. I've been watching you a long time. Really helped me kind of help transform my data visualization skills. Now it's me having to kind of transform, right, bringing other people along with me in the journey. I'm the cheerleader. I got the pom-poms, but glad to always visit.
Though. That's
Atlanta.
exactly how it's supposed to happen. Think of all the people who helped me along the way. I can't pay them back directly, but then it's like, okay, I help, the next people that come along for sure. So that's that is maybe the most heartening thing, is that you're, the overused term, but it's perfect. You're paying it forward.
Standing on the shoulders of giants is what I've always thought of.
Well, me too, for sure.
I want to see, Russ joined us with his camera. I want to see if he had a question.
No.
You just wanted to, you're like, wow, he's got an actual office. This is cool.
Yeah, it's a nice looking office, Russ.
I'm just here to hang out with you guys.
Okay.
I've sat in an office with that exact view, I think, at some point in my past.
So where is Analytic Vision headquarters, Nelson, or is it like all visual, virtual?
You're kind of looking at it.
Okay.
Ironically enough, we're in North Atlanta, basically.
Oh, it looks like we got a question from Lou.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Lou.
Yep.
Hey, how's it going? So I'm at ADP and former Verizon. I think I'm probably the oldest person here other than maybe Steve. I've been doing this for 30 years. So back in the Air Force, I even did hand-filled out spreadsheets with ticket tapes and all kinds of stuff. So one of the things I wanted to agree with Steve is the crowdsourcing part, is that when I was at Verizon, one of the things that we had to transition our analytics team from Excel to Tableau. They basically said, okay, you have over 100 reports out there. We want them all on Tableau in 6 months. And so we just had to do it. And the way we did it is we took all the senior analysts and we said, okay, you take this set, you take that set, and each senior analyst had an analyst. And they just started moving stuff to Tableau. So some analysts went crazy, bubble charts, box and whiskers, all these floating stuff, and hover to get your tag data, your marks, and all that kind of stuff. And basically, I told my analysts, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build Excel in Tableau. So we're just going to move it over and make it look the same for now. Let's say we'll add visualizations and all that kind of stuff, but you got to respect the end user, that you can't just change everything overnight and all of a sudden expect them to adapt to it immediately. And what I did is this is where I agree with Steve, is I started crowdsourcing it. I reached out to all the leaders and said, look, here's the initiative from the analytics team. We have to move to Tableau, but this has to mean something to you. To me as an analyst, I already know what it says. I live in this data all day, every day. You're the business owner. You have to make decisions. And that's what we did, is we moved it over, made it as seamless for them, and then started introducing it and building visualizations that made sense to them. And what really kind of proved out and this whole crowdsourcing idea was that the guys that went full-blown visualizations actually had to pull it all back and had to start all over again, because the end users didn't know what to do with it. They were just looking at it like, I don't know what this tells me anymore. So it was so I really respect the conversation here, and again, I'm the youngest person here. I love learning from you guys, and I'm definitely going to really participate here and improve my skills. But I do agree where Steve started this is the numbers do matter, and scaling. I've always preached on the scaling thing. Be careful on your scales and your axes, because you're going to mislead people. And it was, matter of fact, I'm going to tell you one last story. I was at Verizon, and a guy walked up behind me. He says, "Hey, that line's going in the wrong direction." And he was all upset. And I just clicked on something. He didn't know what I clicked on. And it was pointing back up. And he was like, "Well, you just corrupted the data." I'm like, "No, you were looking at 3 days. I just backed it up to 30 days. So it's all perspective. I just happen to be looking at 3 days when you walked up, but over 30 days, we've improved. But the last 3 days, we had a small dip, so axes and perspective matter.
So I'm going to just distill something. I'm going to ask anyone who wants to comment. I've got my thoughts on something, but if I were to distill, there were nuances to this. Distill it and say, hey, when we migrated, it was when we tried to go off in crazy directions with visualizing, it didn't work. Success came when we just duplicated what we had, what was in Excel, and duplicated it in Tableau.
Well, as a starting point, just to because you want to move, we had to move people to a new tool that they've never seen Tableau before, ever. So we had to do, so what I wanted to told my analysts, I'm like, look, they're going to get a link next week, whatever, 3 months from now, they're going to get a link to a brand new tool. They're expecting a spreadsheet attached in an email. Now they're going to get a link and they're not going to know what to do. So when they click on the link, it should look the same at the first glance. And then a week from now or 2 weeks from now, from that point, we'll add in the visualizations. And, the adaptability was much easier because, like I said, they were used to getting a spreadsheet, with, let's say a pivot table, and all of a sudden, they still had their tool, but then we added the visualizations, which really just enhanced their experience. So I guess the point I was trying to make is that you can't just dump people. Like even here at companies I work for, you'll have somebody come down the line like, "Oh, we're using dbeaver." Okay, we all use Microsoft SQL. We're supposed to just start using dbeaver right now. So I think you have to transition people into understanding that there's a new tool in place, that there's enhancements here. And I thought I saw Russ raise his hand before, but you have to bring people along into wanting to learn the new tool.
So I think Steve froze.
Yeah.
So he's gonna come back in a minute. So the thing I would suggest, I think there's a couple different things going on, and Steve I think was gonna dig in, but I think there's nuance because what I hear more than Viz versus not Viz is actually change management, and bringing people along with you on a journey. It could have been a lot of different things that it went from this thing to that thing. And if we go from that thing to this thing really fast, then we're going to lose a bunch of people on the way because we didn't give them the map of where they were going. And so in this case, it was Excel to Tableau, but it could have just as easily been Teradata to AWS. And it could have been, Macs to PCs, right? It doesn't matter, but everything changed and we lost a bunch of people on the way. And so we had to go back and get them is basically the story. And I think you articulated well, like ultimately we had to be more breadcrumb. Like we changed platforms, but we made it look like the old one, and that's fine. But I do think the guidance is ultimately to make sure you're doing some of that change management and kind of managing transitions up front, and then you set yourself up for more success, and also creating expectations with the teams that are going to be creating these visualizations, these dashboards.
I totally agree with you. That's kind of the point of my long story, and I apologize for that. I totally agree with you. Is when you don't have that change management, you have to bring people along, and I think that's the point of my story was that where Steve started this conversation is where people forget to collaborate with their end users, because from analytical standpoint, yeah, we know what the data says and we evaluate it every day. But who's using these dashboards? I mean, really, in all the cases that I've been involved in is business leaders. They have to be able to look at a dashboard. As a matter of fact, this came up recent with senior leadership, where they said, these dashboards don't tell me anything based on what I'm trying to do to run a business. And so we went back and reevaluated, collaborated with them, and we got them exactly what they needed. And Tableau is a great tool, but at the same time, without that collaboration, it's a tool. And we don't want that as analysts. We want the business leaders to be able to look at what you provided them and say, I know what to do now from a business standpoint.
Absolutely. And any solution is going to incorporate three things. One is a tool, right?
Yeah.
Which in this case would be the Tableau. But the other two things are kind of people and ideal behaviors. And so you think about, what is the behavior that I want to create or enable for this executive in this case, right? But really for, whatever the audience is, right? How often do I want them touching this? And then, what are the systems and processes that allow that audience to make a decision and pull a lever and take an action? So the systems and processes, and if they don't exist, they need to exist. And if they do exist, do they function the way that we want them to function with this new tool, with this new thing that we're doing? Any solution that doesn't have all three components will fall flat.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate everybody letting me speak up, and I hope I didn't take anything away from this. You guys are great, and I appreciate all everything that's being presented here. Thank you.
Love it. Steve, we see you, man. You're back.
Yeah. I even had a plan B on this thing, which is I have a MiFi thing in case it's, once every 3 months, something happens with the internet. MiFi thing isn't working as well. So, hey, sorry about that. So what was I'm now 5 minutes late and $1 short or whatever it is, day late and $1 short. What was the outcome of the decision about, just make everything you did in Excel in Tableau? I don't know if I'm simplifying that a bit, but what came out of that?
Yeah, we chatted quickly about the difference, kind of the idea of change management or managing transitions, and it being more of a change management challenge than it being a Tableau challenge. And so kind of focusing on, how do we get ahead of when we're going to make a transition, because it could have been, Mac to PC, or it could have been Teradata to AWS. It just happened to be Excel to Tableau in this case. And so we chatted through that for a little bit, but yeah, it was a good combo with Lou. Mike.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, man.
Thank you, Steve. I've been writing notes ever since you started, and thank you. I don't even know where to begin. But I do have a question though. Within my organization, I hear how crowdsourcing and training and use cases have been impactful. But as I'm very new to my organization, I notice there's a stream between the user and the correlation between the data. Our end users, our sales reps, they're very hesitant in correcting their behavior and how they input the data. Therefore, the data is considered invalid because, they don't even expect the data to be inputted correctly. So in order to get our our shareholders and our senior, reps to improve or want to get involved with the data, how can we change, our sales reps? How can I influence, or how can we I hope what I'm saying makes sense. It's the step before actually getting to the data of, crowdsourcing and use cases. If the data is being put in wrong to begin with, how can I change that, or any advice toward that? And I hope what I said kind of makes sense to somebody.
No, it just makes a lot of sense. But I'll let other people speak, and then I'll give kind of my take.
If I could hop in here, I'm actually dealing with that right now, working with the sales team, and start simple, start with small projects, right? Get one thing right and get adoption, like a certified kind of dashboard with like understand what your key business questions, maybe prioritize some of your top ones and start with checking off like which ones can you impact with a better visualization and clean up that data. Like don't try to boil the ocean. Start with one data source that helps answer specific data questions, build a tool, get adoption on that. Then you have a use case within the organization to show that, hey, if you do this right, look at the benefits that it delivers. And that's what I've seen a lot work for, because I've worked with a lot of sales teams, a lot of bad Salesforce instances. So helping them just start small, clean it up, build a certified dashboard that you can get everyone to use, and then use that as your use case to build more tools in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, our sales rep look at Salesforce as just more administrative work. So, you know, I definitely can relate to what you're saying. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Mike, one thing I would share just real quick, we like this idea so much, we built a slide on it. And this is just that people, process, and technology piece. And what I'm hearing you say is you've got people who want to get stuff done and you have technology, but you're missing a process and
Yes.
like systems and guidance. And so what happens is if there is no process, you have the wild, wild west. You got people trying to get stuff done. You have the technology to do it and everybody's doing it the way they feel like. And so this becomes the challenge that you end up facing. And so in order to create a solution, you've got to have all three components and you've got to get people to buy into it. So that becomes your challenge at that point.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Steve, I'm curious, to Mike's point, like, do you have stories of organizations who've gone from kind of missing a component of a full solution to like, you know, we figured this out, something clicked and all of a sudden now we're firing on all cylinders, and kind of the before and after stories?
The Charles articulated probably as well as I can, which is, okay, look what happened over there in this little area. Look what's blooming over there, and everything's a desert over here. What did they do? Part of this, and it's pretty hard to change from within, especially if you're new there, but is kind of frightening or scaring senior management into embracing a data culture. I mean, this is what Val Logan is doing, and what Ben Jones is doing, and a roadmap for how to do it. But how do you first, figuratively grab senior management by the lapels and going, you don't do this, you're just toast, And I said it all starts with data visualization. Boy, it actually starts earlier than that. If there's no good data to even look at, then the game's really over. So, Mike, that I can imagine the frustration, but that you have identified it and going, okay, if we can just get some good data in there, we can do some amazing things. See if you can find a like-minded soul there to help you with this. And then maybe someone, with a little bit of pull in the organization who's pretty excited about this as well. And like, oh, I like what, this can do. And get that little flower bed blooming over there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Not only am I new, but I'm remote, but I definitely most of that, but definitely I appreciate it.
But by the way, I just got to put, the Blue had mentioned this. I am not, this is me, and you are welcome to disagree with me, but I'm not a big fan of just replicating what you did in Excel and Tableau. But I get we went crazy and made, dumb stuff. By the way, in the hands of people who may not be that experienced yet, the show me button is one of the most dangerous things in Tableau. It's like, this is boring. Whoa, look at that. Packed bubbles, colorful packed bubbles.
Now,
wow.
Hey, Steve, this is Lou again. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I agree with you. I'm not a fan of that either. And I think what Nelson was saying is that they didn't incorporate any change management. So I just wanted to create that transition for the end user. So I totally agree with you. I love your presentation and I love what I'm hearing here, but I think without change management, you're just dumping people. It's like somebody, who was it that said, Charles was talking about old data dumps. You're just literally just dropping it on top of them saying, well, here it is, good luck. You know, it's got colors, that's great. And so, but yeah, I love what you guys are saying. And yeah, I don't believe in that either, but without a change management, you have to do something. That's what I was, yeah. So.
Well, Lou, are you starting to, are you now at the point where we're not just where we were with Excel, but we're now better?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that example that I gave you, that's from 4 years ago.
Okay.
And we did what I mentioned to you. We did that for 3 months, and then we created a new muscle memory, and then we took them on the ride of Tableau. So, you know, hey, you got a huge Tableau cheerleader here. So
okay, I've got a fun backstory for you.
Okay,
it's it is. Do not be, those of you who are trying to embrace this and drive change, do not be discouraged by failure with this. Consider yourself what it would be like to be a Major League Baseball player. If you succeed 30% of the time, you're winning, okay? Gosh, if the Mets only had hitters that were succeeding 30% of the time, I might be happier this week. But so years ago, I got hired by an organization that said, hey, and it was something around survey data, which is my little subspecialty. And it is taking a bunch of people working full-time, 3 weeks out of 4, full-time, to produce these monthly decks, these monthly reports. If we did this in Tableau, can we do it faster? And they wanted to make it look exactly the same as what they had before. Think of this big balanced scorecard thingy with red, yellow, and green all over the place. And I said, well, yeah, we could automate it and do it a lot faster, but this could be an opportunity to do it better. And they said, better? What could be better than red, yellow, and green? This is phenomenal, isn't it? I said, well, give me a shot. And I wrote this kind of white paper saying, well, here's what you're trying to show, and look how much more effective it is to do it this way. And, oh, instead of this, show it this way. And the client, my client, loved it, said, you're right, this is a better way to do it. Their client went, nope, we want it exactly the way we've always had it. Red, yellow, green, etc. That little white paper, which I said, gee, if you have this data and this circumstances, instead of showing it this way, maybe we should show it this way. That was the catalyst for the big book of dashboards. That's why the big book, it was, gee, if you have this situation and this type of data, here might be a good way to show it. But I failed with this particular client. Now, it led to a pretty good book and a wonderful collaboration with Jeff and Andy, but because along the way, there was someone who was kind of a jerk. The clients, my client's client just said, no, you're going to do it my way. I don't care. And so, all right, there's not a lot you can do when that happens. Collaboration and working together and trying to come only works if there are no jerks in the mix. If there's a jerk, there's nothing you can do.
I'm going to jump in here because we're going to be shut down at 2:30 no matter what. I wanted to make sure, Russ, I want to make sure if he had a question, he got his answer. Also, just to summarize a few of these points, there's so many points here. I wanted to say that, show me button, I agree, scares me. And also analytics tab for me is be careful with that one, because I'm an analytics person. Like, you just can't throw that trend line there. So don't get me started on that one. Also, simple charts, actually not so easy to do. So give yourself some grace as Steve said, just try it anyway. What is it that Quee says, Nelson? Don't let great get in the way of, or perfection get in the way of good, and don't let good get in the way of starting. I love that quote. I think that's great. Let's see here before we start wrapping up, and we're going to throw some links in the chat here. I wanted to see if Russ still had a question. He may have a bolt.
I was just going to throw in my 2 cents on the Excel versus Tableau scenario. And it also applies to what Steve just described, is when a customer says, hey, I've got it in Excel, just make it like this in Tableau. I think the best way to do that is go ahead and do that to meet them where they are. but also do it in a viz. So you say, here, look, here's your Excel in Tableau. It's just what you're comfortable with, but look how much better it could be. And that helps bridge the gap from, I can only see spreadsheets. I can't, everything else just blows my mind. And then when they see it, they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. And it kind of opens their mind to what is possible with data visualization.
Love that.
Yep.
Does your board say get 1 time better today?
1% better.
Oh, 1%. Okay. I didn't know if that was an X for times. I'm like, I'm 1 times better than, yeah, I'm good.
No, 1%. Well, that's just going to be compounded. We can do on how
1
that
time
works.
better now.
Yeah, Russ, I think that is wonderful recommendation. And you don't want to come in with sharp elbows. It's like, hey, I'm the data viz genius. You're the idiot. I know better than you do. It's more, hey, well, what are the questions we're trying to answer?
Yep.
And which ones, which of these is it easier and faster to answer? And they go, then they'll probably appreciate your kind helpfulness in getting them to embrace this and say, well, look how easy it is for us to see where the outliers are, or where the problems are here. Look how hard it was over here. That's a recipe for success. You're working directly with the stakeholder and helping them embrace this. So Russ, point really well taken.
Thanks.